Addiction, the fact or condition of being addicted to a certain substance, activity, or thing. Although this is the definition, living with an addict or living with an addiction is so much more. Many of you are probably aware of the seriousness of this issue and the effects of it. Dealing with addiction running through my family, I've dealt with it firsthand from parents and step-parents and often wonder why we keep punishing addicts if it's not working. I wonder how our society would be without the harsh punishment on addicts instead of evidence-based treatment. Punishing addicts causes more relapse and recidivism. Anything forced is detrimental to the addict and worsens their addiction, and there are many options of treatment that are much more effective. Although the opposing side may argue that addicts should be punished because they're breaking the law and this is the only way to force them to be better, this is precisely what worsens their addiction, which is what this perspective fails to acknowledge. This issue should be taken as a public health issue with evidence-based treatment. With that being said, one of the most pushing reasons supporting my argument that punishment is ineffective and that treatment works better is that punishment causes relapse and recidivism. When imprisoned, addicts deal with isolation, trauma, and withdrawal symptoms that they cannot manage. According to the Gateway Foundation, 85% of addicts that are imprisoned will relapse when they are released. Not only do addicts relapse in their drug use, but they also recidivate in other drug-related crimes. According to the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, an even higher number of 95% of addicts will relapse after being released. They then go on to say that 60 to 80% of these addicts will recidivate in a crime related to their addiction. When imprisoned, addicts will gain back a lower tolerance to the drug they were previously doing, which causes them to easily fall back into the cycle of drug abuse. Specifically with an opioid use disorder, when this addict is imprisoned, they will gain back a low opioid tolerance, which then makes them fall back into their cycle of substance abuse when they are released. In regard to relapsing, really anything forced, even forced treatment, is detrimental to the addict and worsens their addiction in many ways. In a study, according to an article, The Effectiveness of Compulsory Treatment, a systematic review, a study done in China showed that 46% of the people included in a forced detox and treatment relapsed after just 1 to 6 months, and then a further 10% relapsed after a year. Among heroin users, and also a forced detox, 98% relapsed in total, 22% being after just 3 days, and 52% of that being after 1 month. The addict is then also limited for future opportunities. After being imprisoned, the addict would have a criminal record, resulting in unemployment, which then limits access to housing and education. This then reinforces poverty as a whole. With all of this evidence proving that punishment is ineffective and that treatment is definitely a better solution, what are these options? There are many foundations and organizations that work with different treatment options, including the Gateway Foundation. Different options of treatment are medical detox, therapy, and support groups. Medical detox works at managing withdrawal symptoms and identifying them. In therapy, in the behavioral therapies at Gateway, they work at identifying stressors and triggers and how to manage these and limit these. They work at creating better coping skills for the addict to limit substance abuse or have no substance abuse. In support groups like NA and AA at Gateway, they create a positive environment where they can encourage the addict after their life of addiction and talk about stories which they all relate and don't feel judged. I hope through my persuasive speech today that my argument reminds you why it's important that we have evidence-based treatment instead of punishment. We went over how punishment causes more relapse and recidivism, how anything forced is detrimental to the addict and worsens their addiction, and how there are many more options for treatment that work way better and much more effective. Dealing with addiction firsthand from parents and step-parents and other family members, I'm aware of the effects and know that evidence-based treatment is important and that this should be taken as a public health issue. And I hope that you all do as well. Thank you. Oh, that was kind of,